What's going on, everybody? JD here, and today I'm going to give you a tutorial on how to put springs, shocks, and struts on your Fox body Mustang. So roll intro. Alright guys, so I've got here a 92 Mustang. This belongs to my brother Zach. He's hiding from the camera over there, but anyway, we're going to put a set of, I just did that stupid clap thing. Anyway, we're going to put a set of lowering springs on the car. As you see, the car already sits pretty low. I don't know how well you can, I'm pointing at the little screen. Anyway, I don't know how well you can tell that it's already lowered, but it's lowered the wrong way. They've cut a couple coils out of the stock springs, so the car just kind of beats the snot out of you like it's a go-kart. So we're going to fix that today with new shocks and springs. We've got a set of KYBs, and we've got some SVE lowering springs with a new bump stop and new spring isolators, the part that wraps around the top and puts the little, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, you're going to find out in a minute. So let's get started. All right, so first things first, we're going to get the car safely in the air. Cue corny time lapse. All right, now that we got the car up in the air, we're gonna go ahead and pop the front wheels off and get started on the front springs, shocks, or front springs and struts. I could say it right that time. All right, now that we have the wheels off, we're gonna get started on the front. And the first thing you've gotta do is get your brakes out of the way. So you've got 2 bolts here. Once you get your caliper off, you take something like a bungee cord, like this, and hang it up here out of your way. After the caliper's off, you've got to take off, let me get the camera in here so you can see it. Got to take off the tie rod end so the arm can flex, and you got to take off the sway bar end link, and you actually take it off from down here out of the A-arm so you can lower the arm out. Once those things are off, then you're actually going to pull the bolts. These 2 big bolts here, I think one's a 23, or the big side's a 23 and the other's a 21. You've got 2 of these bolts to come off, and then 1 bolt in the engine bay. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that. Alrighty, boys and girls, well, like 97% men and 3% women, so thanks Mom and my wife. Anyway, now that I've got the strut unhooked from the spindle, the tie rod end out, and the sway bar end link disconnected from the A-arm, we're going to slowly lower down the spindle and the A-arm so that the spring gets freed up and I can pull it out. So here we go. Zach, if you want to very slowly pull this out. Now this is dangerous, and I'm sure every single one of y'all are going to yell at me about not having a spring compressor handy, but the spring has been massively cut, so it's actually not under a whole lot of tension, and it should just fall out. Otherwise, I'm going to die, and you guys are going to get to watch it on YouTube. So here we go. Slowly. Go on. And it's already loose. Keep going. Yeah, it's already. I want the sway bar end link. Keep on going. Pull it up from under there. Uh-oh. Alright guys, forgive me, but I went ahead and knocked the top top nut off the strut. If you look over here, there's the strut and dust cover and all that. I went ahead and pulled that off. So now you got a clear space for the new spring to go in and the new strut to go on. So I'm gonna get started putting that stuff back, putting it back together, putting all that back on it. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, wardrobe change. No, really, it's the next day, and just kind of filling you in on what happened and why it's the next day. I did something stupid. I didn't realize that I'd done something stupid until a little bit later that night, and it had gotten dark, and I guess I owe you a little bit of an explanation. So what did I do? Well, my dumb butt decided to catch a stock spring with bare hands, and I've either seriously bruised, sprained, or maybe even fractured my thumb, and I'm going black and blue up through the side of my hand. So that made the process of continuing to work on the driver's side front a little bit harder, you know, with a thumb that didn't work, at least not the way you wanted it to. And I can't even talk. I'm a little pissed off, pardon my French. But the first spring compression tool that we had wasn't the right one. It was a McPherson Strut coil spring compressor, and the challenge in these cars is getting a spring compressor in there between the A-arm and the K-member and being able to do that. So we had to go rent another one, and it was a fork type, and I don't know, it's just been heck. But anyway, we finally got it figured out. By the time I could start filming again into a logical place to where filming would work, it was too dark, so we're gonna pick back up today. So with that being said, I wanted to wrap you up, or at least show you what and all did get completed on the driver's side. The new spring is in, the new strut is in, I've got the bolt up top in. The only thing I have it buttoned back up is the sway bar end links, just because one side is different than the other at the moment. So I've got both sides undone. I had Zach undo the other side last night, just to make it easier to install the end links, because if you've got a different length or different geometry in the suspension with a changed spring and changed strut, it's difficult to line them up. So we're going to get the other side completed before we put in the sway bar end links. All right, and just to get you fully up to date on where we're at, on the passenger side, we've already got the strut undone. The spindle is free and loose. We've got a jack supporting the bottom of the A-arm, caliper up out of the way, and the sway bar unlink undone here. So now it's going to be just about using the jack to lower this arm slowly. And in this case, instead of getting my butt kicked by that spring, we're just going to let it come out on its own. I'm going to leave the strut in place just to kind of catch it, but I don't feel like tearing up my hands any worse than I already have. So let's get started on that.
That was much safer.
Alright guys, as you saw, the spring's in now. So the next thing we're going to do, I can go ahead and drop out this old strut so we can get the new strut in the car and start reassembling the front suspension. Very, very simple, since we've already disconnected where the strut connects to the spindle and all that. All we have to do is take off this bolt here, so I'm going to shut up and do that. Now that the old strut's out, it's hard to see that because of the shadow, but yeah, the old strut's out, the old nut. Discard the old nut. And 2 pro tips here. Take a rag and hold it around the socket while you're impacting the strut nut off, because that thing gets hot with the friction, particularly if you got a little bit of rust and it's aged. So here's our new strut. The second pro tip is when you pull, you know, they have a strap on them or whatever to make them fit in packaging, but when you pull that strap off, the shocks aren't primed. It's got to move the fluid or the hydraulic fluids around in the shock. So you're just going to want to push up and down on that piston, that rod right there, a couple times until the shock feels the same pressure going down and comes back up at the same speed. And that's showing you that you got the fluid all around in the shock, or strut in this case, as it's supposed to be. So we're gonna go ahead and stab this thing in here. Yay! All right, now that we got that hand started on there, you don't want to bolt that down until the car's weight's on it, and you got everything reassembled. It's hard to see with the shadows. I've got the big bolts and nuts back in here. I got to start the other one on here. We're gonna go ahead and get those tight. There's a little bit of wiggle room, so you just want to kind of eyeball it and get the rotor straight up and down. And then we're gonna start reassembling the front suspension. So here comes the time lapse. Woo! Alright, while Zach finishes up the sway bar end links in the front, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the rear. Well, here's the triumphant return of Drippy JD if you watch the exhaust video for Smokey. So, it's good and warm today. Anyway, I'm going to start by popping the bolts out of the quad shocks and the bolt that hooks the bottom of the shocks there. We're replacing both springs and shocks, front and rear. So, let's get started on the rear. Alright guys, quick wrap up, and I'm sorry for the ambient noise, the neighbors getting carpet steam cleaned, but I just wanted to show you where we're at. My camera died, so sorry you didn't get to see the film of us actually breaking this down and throwing a spring in here, but I can at least walk you through it real quick. Alright, so to make this work, the quad shock needed to be above the axle. I can push it up. Anyway, thinking out loud, I'm bad about that. Anyway, to get that spring out, I just shook the snot out of y'all. Anyway. I said anyway like 6 times. Cut. To make it happen, we were replacing the shocks and the springs back here. You can see my hand pointing. My bad. So what you do is you undo the quad shock, take that off, and undo the bottom of the shock. I'll give you free travel of the axle. You can push down the axle and pull the spring out. And once you have both sides done, you'll notice we got a jack under there. We left the axle hanging loose, put the new isolators, insulators, whatever you want to call them. You see it down there on the bottom of the spring, and there's one up there on the top of the spring right here. You put those in, and then you can push the spring in there, and we used a lady foot pry bar, this thing here. Used a lady foot pry bar to push the spring up onto the seats on the control arm. Once that's in place, we just put the top nut on the shock here, up in the back. Let me show it to you. It's a little bright, but put the new shock mount up top, and it all went back together pretty quickly. So we're going to get the bolt and nut back on the quad shock, put the bolt and nut on the shock down here, and get the car finished up. So catch you guys in a second. All right guys, well there you have it. It's on the ground, and there's my finger, appropriately lowered. I got the cut stock springs off of it and got it all finished up. New shocks, new struts, springs and isolators and all that crap. So hope you guys are able to take something away from the video. I hope it helps you out when you get ready to do your car. Now keep in mind, everything we did to this car applies from 1979 through 2004, as long as it's a solid rear axle. It will not work on the IRS Cobras. Outside of that, with variations from springs that on 4 cylinders and 6 cylinders and stuff like that, all the V8 cars are the same. So like, comment, comment, subscribe. Sorry, I can't count for some reason when I'm tired and dripping. But yeah, let's build something cool together. I hope you guys got something out of it, and I hope you have a great weekend. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.